So for step 14, the gearbox, well, you can see here we've got the differential and this second shaft that we put together in the last step. It's going to go into A4, and we've got a bearing as well that's got to go on. And then we're going to attach the top cover with these 6 MA1 screws. So there are the gearbox pieces. There, of course, is our differential pieces. And then, of course, there are the 6 screws and the ball bearing that we need. So I'll set this up and we'll put this together. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a look at this piece. This is the A4. You can see that this is where the drive shaft is going to come out of, so we know that that is the correct direction. We also know that we need to grease these gears up. So you can also see that they're showing, note direction. Well, we know that this seal top piece is going to face that direction. So let's grease up the ring gear. Just like that. I'm not going to go crazy, but I'm definitely going to make sure that there is enough on it all the way around. And we're going to take this, and that is obviously going to slide into there. So now that just sits there. Easy peasy. And then we've got this gear, which we then have to grease up as well, as they show. So let's do that. And I mean, I'm not going to go too crazy here because we already know that the grease from the ring gear is going to cover this anyway. So in fact, I'm just going to leave it at that. And we know that that is going to sit down there. But first we have this bearing that's got to go on. So that's going to sit basically right there. And that bearing is going to sit at the end. So there we go. There is our gear in motion. So we know that that's how that's all going to look, just like that. So that means that we can grab our top part here, and you can see that's going to sit over top of there. Snap that into place. Everything's working fine. So now it's just a matter of screwing down everything. So we know that there are 2 screws up here. And again, I'm just going to go all the way around, making sure that nothing is binding. I'm also making sure that I've got all the screws in the correct place. So we know there's that and that. There's one up here. We know there's one here. And then at the back, we know there's one right there. And we know there's one right there. So there you can see there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Those screws need to be screwed down all the way. And again, I'm going to go back and forth, making sure that nothing is binding along the way. Now, because all it is a matter of screwing these down, I'm not going to do this on camera. We'll take a quick peek after I've got them down, and we'll move to the next step. But for right now, I just got to screw these all in. Okay, so I have screwed down all of the screws. And you'd think we'd just move to the next step. But that's not the case. And I have to tell you that this might be an area that I'm not 100% happy with this gearbox build, because everything works nice and smooth Like I can feel like the gears, everything now is moving nice and smooth. But the only way to make that happen is I had to loosen the 4 screws that are over the main part. Because if you screw these down, as I would be used to, where you would screw them down and once they're tight, I might do a half turn more just so that I know that they're nice and tight and attached. This doesn't feel that good. In fact, it moves nice and smooth, then it doesn't, then it does, then it doesn't. It's as though somehow when the 2 pieces are screwed in completely, there's some sort of resistance happening somewhere. Now what I've done is these 2 screws here, I've tightened up just as they should be all the way, because there's a bearing here and a bearing here, which means that even if I tighten this all the way, the plastic is on top of the bearing, leaving this gear to run nice and smooth. But these 4, if I tighten them all the way down, this does not run as smooth as you would hope. So I don't know. I've not run into that sort of thing before. So what I've done is these 2 are screwed down all the way, but these 2, I'm screwing them all the way down. And then when I get to the end, I back it off a bit. And in backing it off, like this is still very tight, but the gear now moves smoothly. So I'm telling you that just because when you're building this, once you've tightened everything down, do check to make sure that the differential and the gear that it, this gear here is all moving nice and smooth. Because when it was all tight, I could move this and then sometimes it would jam. And then sometimes it would, it would be free again, and then it would jam. So I took the whole thing apart, discovered that the gears inside are working really well. Like there's nothing wrong with the gears as they were. And when you put on the cover and you hold it tight, everything's working fine. But I guess when you tighten things down all the way with the screws, making sure that the plastic's really tight around the ends, it somehow starts to bind. And there's nothing in the instructions that say don't tighten these screws to the end, like leave some play. There's nothing in the instructions like that. So I would just say that when you're building this step, make sure that everything is moving smooth, and if they're not, loosen those 4 screws. These 2 are fine, but you may need to loosen these 4 screws just a bit to keep it moving. So yeah, I'm not 100% sure what's gone on there. And, if you've run into the problem yourselves, if you've built one before, let me know in the comments. I would be interested, because I've taken this apart a couple of times and discovered that the only way to stop the issue was to back off the screws a bit more, and then it freed everything up. Okay, so that is step 14. So now we're going to move on to step 15 and work on attaching gears 1.